I'm Eric Loy, and welcome to Eric Loy Interviews. On this podcast, we talk to folks from the VTuber community about their channels, their talents, their stories, where they come from, and their plans for the future. We're joined by Brandr. Hi.
Hey, how's it going?
Doing well, doing well. Introduce yourself to everybody, please.
Hey, so I'm Brandr. I am a retired military veteran, was in for over 7 years, retired, started picking up streaming recently to kind of help me move, work out some things. Been streaming, trying to learn how to draw, play video games, do a
Okay.
little bit of everything, have a little fun.
Well, thank you for your service, first of all.
Appreciate it. Thank you for your support. So
Yeah.
how's it going, Mr. Loy?
It's going pretty good. Going pretty good. We're just trying to settle everything up with the time change with everybody, which is going to be
Yeah.
interesting over the next several weeks, but we'll see how that figures out. So you got started after military service. Was it something that you joined right up into, or did it take a while?
It took a little while. It wasn't, my first choice. It wasn't the first thing I was actually going to go with. But my doctor recommended it to me. He thought it'd be fun. He thought it'd be a good idea. So I picked it up. I've just kind of ran with it since to use it as more of an excuse to play some video games I wasn't able to play for a while, try out new hobbies, new artistic endeavors, a little bit of everything.
Now you say you weren't able to do for a while. Was that because of the service? Really weren't able to get into it. I mean, it's not like you have a lot of time.
Yeah, a little bit. Part of it was also I just never. Service was kind of stressful at times. You know what I mean? You just come home and you just want to sit down, play video games, forget about the day, if that makes any sense.
It makes a lot of sense, actually. It really does. And here you get a chance to express yourself a little more, maybe expand on what you were able to do online. And when I'm talking to you right now, you are streaming at the moment. You said you were doing some artwork.
Yes, actually, I've actually been practicing anatomy this time because it's a big part of drawing is character design and whatnot. And I actually have a lot of artists and other VTubers that I really like to admire, and I've always wanted to emulate them to some extent and be able to create what's in my head, in a manner of speaking.
Yeah, my wife tells me I should never create what's in my head. I should just go with what everybody else goes. That my mind is a terrible thing. That's that's the reason why I've stayed out of any further education in my old age. Uh, the uh, the ability to do this, is this something you've always wanted to do? Some art type of things?
Yes, it is, but I was raised always in a bit of a blue collar family, so it was always kind of against the pale to try and do artistic things. So I joined the service originally to give me some experience, give me some money, and enable me to eventually chase those dreams. And then, well, I left the service. Some things happened. You could say I'm disabled now, so I have nice little disability benefits from the army. So now the door's wide open.
Well,
Why not, right?
it certainly is going to give you a chance, because this particular medium has given a lot of people a chance to express themselves and almost live an entirely without maybe this isn't the exact right phrase, but a second life, rather than what they're living day to day.
And that's part of the reason why I felt more open to trying this, since not as many people. Well, a fresh start, you could say.
Yeah.
It's a good way to get a fresh start, if that makes any sense.
Well, it certainly does, and a lot of people have been able to do this now with the VTuber situation. Was it something that you wanted to kind of give yourself a kind of a buffer as you got started?
A little A, little B sort of thing. A part of it, it's a lot of things. It's sort of there's a there's a lot of streamers nowadays, right? I'm sure we all realize.
Hmm.
So VTubing was one way to set myself apart from the rest of the pack, in a manner of speaking. But also, given the nature of my retirement from service, I have trouble showing my face in public nowadays. So it gives me a nice little mask to kind of protect my sensibilities. It's a way to set myself away from everyone else. And it's a way to attract a particular audience. Since I'm pretty open with how I'm prior service and I'm military, that typically attracts a certain kind of crowd.
Hmm.
But with the VTubing, I can kind of filter that crowd for a very specific client base, if that tracks at all.
It certainly does. It definitely does. And given it, people are able to do this with whatever situation they're in, whatever circumstances, they can use this as a way, as you mentioned, kind of a fresh start, but in a way, doing this while still being able to put a lot of yourself into it.
Yeah,
And that really does give you that little extra confidence to make that step, I imagine.
it does. It does. And at least my doctor says it helps because I also have an issue of shaking. And you can't see it right now, but my hands are actually shaking pretty badly.
Well, yeah, well, that's something else too that people need to realize who are watching for the first time or maybe listening to the interview is that uh, whoever is doing the talking could be in any type of situation. Could be where they can't leave their room. Could be that they've got some sort of issue about being out in public, or whatever you're dealing with as far as disabilities and such. It really does give everybody that chance to be on a level playing field before they get started.
That's one thing that was always my favorite part about the VTubing scenes. You can really kind of be whoever you really want to be, and you can tackle whatever direction you really want to tackle as the VTuber without having to rely on cameras or rely on special effects. Like you see all these streamers who have to have a camera going all the time, so they gotta get all nice and dressed up, do your hair, clean up, etc., which might be quite a substantial hurdle for some people. But you also don't have to worry about being bland and boring as somebody who might not have a camera going. Plus, it has a one of my favorite parts is the more artistic VTubers, the ones who like to do their own their own models and such. I just love seeing all the things they cook up and make on their own, and just attached to their model and persona. I think it's a really interesting way of presenting a new medium.
So, did you come up with your own model?
Yes, but no. I don't have much money right now, and I'm not very artistically inclined. I'm literally learning from zero. So I found a. It's called Vroid Studio. I found a little 3D model maker that prints out a bunch of free, easy to use 3D models. I've been using that until I have the artistic chops to put together my own model.
Well, I mean that's the way to get started. You have to get started somewhere. And while you say you don't have the artistic, I I respectfully disagree because it was. I think it was already the artistic part was there. You just hadn't been able to express it yet.
Uh, Ooh, that was really loud. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to peek you.
No, no, no. That's fine.
Little of A, little of B, because if you asked AMI viewers, my hand right now cannot create artwork. I can create stick figures, and that's about it. So when I say artistic chops, maybe I mean more easy way to make something that I would consider presentable to myself.
Well, you're talking to a guy who can't make stick figures, so you got me beat. you, you're definitely not last in line. Any type of artwork in the family goes through the misses, and definitely not me. Well, as far as the games you're doing online, what type of games? You said a lot of the shooter type games.
I like to do a little bit of everything. I typically trend towards sci-fi, but I like to play games like Warframe, if you've ever heard of it, or Final Fantasy Online. You know
Right.
the two really large MMOs. But I've also been branching out. I've tried No Man's Sky, Cyberpunk. Big fan of the Souls series. I'm actually looking forward to a couple games coming out within the next month. But I don't really have a set game that I like to rate myself by.
Now, it's something that you're not gonna do a whole week of or every single stream on.
No, not really. Maybe I'll do a couple streams back to back just because a particular game has reached out to me. But I'm not really going to I'm not really going to define myself by a singular game or a singular franchise.
Yeah. Now the No Man's Sky, that you're talking about a game that really was panned and controversial when it first came out because yeah, a lot of people said, well, it's not really done, is it, when it came out? But sounds like it's a lot different now, and people are getting a little deeper into what it was all about.
It really has changed, honestly. Like, the difference between release and today is night and day. And while I'm not going to comment on how they initially released, I believe the company responsible for No Man's Sky, I think it was Hello Games,
Mhm.
they have certainly changed the game. And I personally see the $50 I paid for it as well worth it.
Well, well, it's a good. It's while people can pan it when they first came out, and probably have some good reasons too. That's yeah, I didn't play it, but I saw people getting frustrated with it when they did play it. I think that they have to be given a lot of credit for stepping up and keeping working on it because a lot of folks could have just written it off and gone on to the next one.
Oh, absolutely. I'm astounded by the level of growth and the level of change that's gone into the game. Like I had a friend of mine play it when it first came out. He actually tried to get me to play it. And I I it was hard for another friend of mine to actually get me into it like 4 years later. But the difference is staggering. I'm surprised they stuck with it as long as they have. It's frankly a miraculous turnaround.
Yeah, well, it kind of shows you too that they had the bones for a good game. They had a good start. They had a good frame to go with, and now they've kind of added the meat onto it, and they have the possibility of really growing it even further from there.
Exactly, and not many companies really like to put the meat on the bones that they create. A lot of them like to just push something out, see if it works, and if it doesn't, they just throw it away without adding on to it. And I think that's not a really great way to go about the industry.
Yeah, yeah. So I got to give them props for that. I really really do. Now the other games you play, given and this is a question that may be completely unfair. So let me know. Given the military background, is it tough to play some of these games?
Well, that is a difficult question, not because it's particularly controversial
It's
or
very personal,
uh,
and if you don't want to answer it, that's fine.
no. It's not that it's hard to answer because it's hard to define in a manner of speaking. It's not for me. Certain games are hard to play, like Call of Duty, but it's not because boom boom ass scary noise. It's difficult watching people's misinterpretation of the military in general, and not the glorification of it, but the fetishization of it. If that makes
Mm.
any sense. Like I can appreciate a good uniform, like a good character design, good this, good that. But where things start to get weird for me is like, have you seen the movie Top Gun?
Yes.
What where these military games get to me is more how Top Gun glorifies the idea of a maverick, if that makes any sense.
Right. Yeah.
Maverick sounds like a fantastic and a really cool name, right? But in actuality, that is one of the worst things to be called by in the military because a lot of the stuff they do in the movie would get you court-martialed in real life. So it's less scary to me, just kind of more annoying and frustrating how much people misunderstand and don't get the military.
Yeah. And well, that's absolutely true. And they're kind of educated only by movies, television shows, video games that they're playing, and they think they know what's going on, but unless you're in there and having gone through it, you have absolutely no idea.
Exactly, and it's become even worse nowadays as more and more movies are moving away from a realistic and respectful depiction of the military, and they're just moving to do whatever they want. Cool noise, sweaty guys, big action.
Yeah.
But movies I feel that better represent the military is probably what's it called? What was the one about Vietnam?
Uh,
Sorry, my memory's not what it used to
Platoon.
be. It had Gomer Pyle in it. I'm trying to remember so hard.
What?
Um,
Full Metal Jacket.
yes, Full Metal Jacket.
Okay.
Fabulous. That's a fantastic representation of the military at the time, and it still holds very strongly to this day.
Yeah. Yeah. People have to be very careful and try to separate the reality from fantasy when they can. Um, People can take a lot of creative licenses and do what they want with it, but some of it is some of it is based on reality. Some of it is not based on reality. That's tough for an average person to sort out sometimes.
Exactly, and that's the stuff that frustrates me about military and games like that is the just the ignorance of it, if I had to assign a word to it.
Yeah, yeah. It's a pretty good word to assign to it. It's a pretty good word to assign to a lot of things. But that's a whole nother soapbox as far as that goes. Now, when you talk about the science fiction games, we mentioned No Man's Sky. What draws you to that? Were you always kind of interested in science fiction?
I've always a little yes, a little no. I've always kind of varied into fantasy and sci-fi games. Just the willful escapism, the optimism you sometimes see for the future. Like I love seeing the wild and whimsical technologies you'll see in games like No Man's Sky or Cyberpunk. And in spite of the maybe dystopian settings, I've always liked to imagine the better future that's kind of just around the corner they could portray. Like if you've seen Cyberpunk at all, the level of medical technology within Cyberpunk and how grounded in reality it is, big air quotes on that, um, gives me an optimistic view of the future in spite of the pessimistic setting. And I always like to imagine how positive the future can be with those kind of technological advancements.
Yeah, and it could be very positive, and you always have to take the negative with the positive, unfortunately, and there's going to be something there. But if you keep that positive outlook, you can really enjoy those types of things, and the storylines. When you get games like that, I imagine the storylines sometimes almost come second in importance to the surroundings and how the game is put together.
I wouldn't say that they would become secondary to it. I feel like a good story is supported by a good environment. If that
Hmm.
how should I say this? You can't. The story is bones for the setting, which is the meat of a story. If that's a good analogy to make,
That's very good.
games like Cyberpunk would still function without the sci-fi technological aspects. It just the sci-fi helps enhance the story.
Mm. So it's more the seasoning on the story, but again, that sometimes that draws the person in anyway. Kind of a marketing type of thing. That looks nice and flashy and fun, and then you kind of get into what it's all about.
Exactly. Like seasoning is a great term for that because it's actually what got me into Cyberpunk. I saw the trailer all those years ago, and I was like, "Oh, that looks cool. That looks awesome." Even though it wasn't a game I'd have been interested in at the time, and I just followed it until release date.
Now you said mentioned that you were looking forward to a couple of games. Which
I
games are you looking
am.
forward to?
I'm looking forward to a sequel to one of my favorite games ever called Dragon's Dogma 2 fantasy game, which I am over the moon for. The Dragon's Cyberpunk sequel that's coming out in a couple of years too, Witcher sequel. A lot of sequels coming out. Elden Ring's DLC, which I'm a huge fan of the Soul series, so I'm over the moon that they finally released that trailer.
Yeah, I see a lot of people getting lined up for that one. The first one that you mentioned, tell me a little bit about that one.
Dragon's Dogma, that's right. Like I
Yeah.
said, my memory is not what it used to be. Dragon's Dogma, the original Dragon's Dogma, was a game released mid early 2010s, and it is a fantasy game where you play as a arisen who has his heart stolen by a dragon, and you have to go throughout the story to go reclaim your heart, and eventually, a larger story unfolds, and that finally, after all these years, we finally have a sequel coming out the 21st of this month. So I'm over the moon for it.
Yep. And there you go. Now, there's one game that you kind of got attached to, and maybe we'll follow at least at the start of when I hope when I hear about sequels, the biggest thing I hope for people is that it's not disappointing. That they might have set their sights a little too high. Um, have you seen trailers for this? I mean, do you think this is going to live up to the originals?
I have seen trailers for it. Personally, I think it's going to live up to the original. A lot of people, there's been a bit of controversy within the little subreddit and community that's been following Dragon's Dogma because it's being limited to 30 FPS. It might not have as many classes or as enemies as people would like, but I prefer to view it as Dragon's Dogma, but more of it,
Hmm.
which is beyond the moon for me. I just wanted more of the game. I don't care if they do any big shiny sequels, if they're trying to do some fantabulous story. Just it being Dragon's Dogma, but more of it would be plenty for me. I'd be over the moon for that alone.
Yeah, I mean, if you can kind of look at it kind of an addition to the first game rather than a game by itself, and that really does change your outlook on something like that. The
Exactly.
I mean, you mentioned
Sorry, sir.
you mentioned Reddit as controversy on Reddit. I said no, there's no controversy on Reddit ever,
No.
and that, they they wouldn't take something and twist it out of proportion and make a big deal out of something like
Nah, not Reddit. Never Reddit.
that. I that's one I stay away from for the most part. It helps keep my hair gray instead of completely off my head. That certainly does. Now, what are your goals for this year for yourself and your channel as far as VTubing is concerned?
Well, for myself, big goals for this month is actually I'm going on a trip to Japan on
Oh,
Wednesday until April, so I am gonna miss the release of Dragon's Dogma, unfortunately.
yeah,
But
but you
get
get
the
out,
trip, do the trip,
you get to go
have a
on.
bunch of fun.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. It
Oh yeah.
when you come back, have you got anything special planned for the channel?
Nothing really special right now, cause I'm still really small scale VTubing. So right now I've just been trying to practice my art, get my health under control because unfortunately my retirement from the military was not a separation, it was a medical retirement, so
Mm,
problems abound. But the big goals for this year would have to be getting my own house because I've been living with my folks because money's tight,
right.
getting my finances under control and leaning more into streaming because it's actually been a great help for my health and my sanity.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like it has been, and again, a great use of the medium. And I'm very happy that you've been able to kind of embrace it and give yourself not only an outlet to work through some things, but something to expand and enjoy what you're able to do as well. It really sounds like it's been great for you.
It's been great. It's been a good start. We'll see. We'll see what the future has. I'm trying to keep my hopes and aspirations vague. Naturally, I'd like to succeed as a streamer, get all 4,000, 5,000 viewers, all the subscribers, all the this, all the that. But it's kind of a claustrophobic career path. So, small goals, small aspirations,
I,
first
I
and foremost.
I
Baby
like that.
steps.
I like that claustrophobic career path. That's a really good explanation for it. It sounds like you got your head on straight, and you've got a really good idea of what you want to do with it. I wish you all the best. Again, thank you for what you've done for us already, for your service, and good luck on that trip to Japan. Have a lot of fun, and when you get back, good luck on that streaming.
I appreciate it. Thank you for letting me come on today. Thank you for the interview. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Eric Loy Interviews. Join us again next time when we talk to another member of the always interesting VTuber community.